The morning sun spilled golden light across Daniel Carter's backyard, painting his carefully tended garden in soft hues. It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday, the kind where he'd sip coffee on the steps of his beloved gazebo, lost in memories of his late wife, Sarah. But that peace shattered when a demolition crew roared into his yard. Yin and VY Ted, their tools gleaming with purpose. Hard hats bobbed, vests flapped, and two men in ill-fitting soot clipboards in hand stood like self-appointed kings, barking orders. They claimed to be HOA officers, and they were here to tear down Daniel's gazebo. The reason? It violated some vague regulation about protected VYUs. Daniel, a retired engineer with a mind sharper than the nails in his gazebo, stood frozen at his back door, his coffee mug trembling in his hand. This wasn't just a structure they were attacking. It was his sanctuary, his heart, his last tether to Sarah. The gazebo was no ordinary backyard feature. Daniel had built it himself after retiring. Every plank measured to perfection, every coat of varnish a labor of love. It was where he and Sarah had spent countless evenings, her laughter mingling with the scent of blooming jasmine, their chairs side by side as they watched fireflies dance. After her passing, the gazebo became his refuge, a place where he could still feel her presence in the creak of the swing, the rustle of leaves. Now, these strangers were dismantling it, splintering wood like it was nothing, under the orders of men who oozed false authority. The HOA officers, a stocky guy named Greg and a slick-talking taller one, Tim, waved their clipboards like scepters, claiming the gazebo lacked approval and encroached on community aesthetics. Daniel's blood boiled. He'd dealt with the HOA before. Petty fines for grass an inch too long, a ridiculous citation for keeping his vintage Mustang out front a day too long. But this was war. Hold it right there. Daniel's voice cut through the morning air, sharp and unyielding. The crew paused, tools mid-swing, as he stormed across the lawn. Show me the authorization for this. Greg shuffled his papers, his eyes darting nervously, while Tim smirked, tossing out jargon about file documentation and community standards. Daniel demanded proof. Their answers were vague, their confidence crumbling under his glare. Something was off, and Daniel's engineering instinct screamed it. He'd spent decades soul VYing problems, spotting flaws in complex systems. These guys weren't just overstepping, they were hiding something. As the crew resumed their destruction, Daniel's mind raced. The gazebo wasn't just wood and nails. It was where he'd celebrated anniversaries, where he'd whispered to Sarah under the stars. Each splinter felt like a stab at his dignity, his memories. Past HOA slights flooded back. The Dulaw 200 fine for Christmas lights left up past January 1st. The lecture about his car disrupting VY Sewell coherence. Each one had chipped away at his autonomy, but this was different. This was personal. He vowed to fight, not just for the gazebo, but for his right to live free from their tyranny. That night, Daniel retreated to his study, a cluttered haven of books and blueprints. His old computer hummed to life as he dove into county records, zoning laws, and property maps. Hours blurred as he sifted through dense legal jargon, his desk a battlefield of papers. Then, a breakthrough. A boundary redraw from years ago, buried in city archives, showed his property was outside HOA jurisdiction. His heart pounded. Greg and Tim had no authority here. Their orders were a sham, their power a lie. This wasn't just VY indication, it was ammunition. Daniel knew he couldn't fight alone. He needed an ally, someone who could turn his discovery into a weapon. Across the fence lived Emily Parker, a lawyer with a reputation for shredding opponents in court and a fierce sense of justice. He found her pruning roses in her garden, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm inside him. "Emily, I need your help," he said, his voice tight. Over coffee in her cozy kitchen, he spilled the story. The crew, the fake officers, the boundary revelation. Emily's eyes narrowed, her legal mind clicking into gear. "If your property's not under their control, they're way out of line," she said, leaning forward. "This isn't just about your gazebo, Daniel. It's about our rights as homeowners." Together, they build a case cross-referencing maps, digging up old surveys, and compiling a dossier of EVY Denke. Daniel's resolve grew, fueled by the thought of Sarah's laughter echoing in the gazebo. He wasn't just fighting for himself, was fighting for every neighbor who'd been bullied by Greg and Tim's petty fines and power trips. Emily saw it too, her passion matching his. "We'll make sure they can't do this to anyone else," she promised, her hand on his arm. The showdown came at a community meeting in the local center, a usually sleepy venue, now crackling with tension. Neighbors filled the rows, their faces a mix of anger and curiosity. Daniel stood at the front, a reluctant hero, with Emily by his side, her briefcase stuffed with proof. As the clock struck 7, Emily took the podium, her voice steady but commanding. "We're here because we deserve transparency," she began, projecting a map that showed Daniel's property free from HOA control. Gasps rippled through the crowd. She laid out the EVY Denke. Fake fines, unauthorized orders, a pattern of deceit. Greg and Tim, seated at the back, squirmed as she named them, their faces paling. The room erupted when Emily revealed their scam extended beyond Daniel's yard, targeting others with bogus citations. Greg tried to interrupt, his voice shaky, but Emily pressed on, her words a scalpel cutting through their lies. Tim muttered excuses, but the crowd's outrage drowned him out. Then, the breaking point. Under the weight of EVY Denke and glares, Greg stammered a confession. They'd targeted Daniel because he'd questioned them, a threat to their fake empire. The admission unleashed a storm of shouts, demand for justice. Daniel felt a surge of triumph not just for himself, but for his neighbors, now awake to their power. The fallout was swift. Greg and Tim were stripped of their false authority, expelled from the HOA, and faced investigations that rippled to nearby towns where they'd pulled similar stunts. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, turning the scandal into a cautionary tale. Daniel's neighborhood, Cedar Grove, breathed freer, its residents united by a new VY violence. Weeks later, hammers rang out in Daniel's backyard as he rebuilt the gazebo. Each nail was a defiance, each beam a promise. He used oak from Sarah's favorite tree, felled in a storm, making the structure a Lee VY Ing tribute. Emily watched, coffee in hand, their shared nod sealing a bond forged in battle. The gazebo rose stronger, its fresh paint glowing under the sunset, a monument to resilience. At a neighborhood gathering, residents rallied around the rebuilt gazebo, its white frame a symbol of their fight. Emily spoke from its steps, her voice ringing, "We stand for our homes, our rights, our unity." Cheers erupted, and Daniel, once a quiet engineer, felt pride swell. He'd sparked a movement. Pro-VYing one-man stand could lift a community. As stars twinkled above, Daniel sat in his rocking chair, the gazebos would creaking softly. The scent of honeysuckle wrapped around him, and he traced the armrest, feeling Sarah's presence. His home was his again, free from false rulers. He not only saved his sanctuary, but ignited a fire in Cedar Grove, a legacy of strength and solidarity. What do you think, did Daniel go too far in his fight? Or was his defiance just what the community needed? Should neighbors always band together against authority? Or can HOAs ever serve a purpose? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if Daniel's story fired you up, and subscribe for more tales of everyday heroes taking a stand.